Hello, hello. Welcome to our No Lits, No Limits. I am Kin from Canada, and I'm joined again by my great partner, Arek. Arek, how are you doing?
Yes, hello, Kin. Hello. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Cannot really complain. Everything is okay. The sun is here. We're looking at a beautiful spring, so I cannot be more happy about it. So yeah, thank you so much. And
Yes,
always, being with you then it's brings me very much joy. Thank you very much for that.
likewise. And I know we're all tends to be happier, and when we're back on daylight savings time, which we talked about, hopefully
Yep.
that's permanently going to stick around this time around. But certainly feels like this summer is arriving pretty quickly around the corner. So it's making all of us a little bit more energetic and happier.
Yes. My bike is already waiting for me and it's eager calling me. So yeah, it will happen soon.
One of the recent experiences I've had, Arek, for work, I wanted just
Mhm.
to get your input. One of our clients experienced getting a potentially counterfeit source component. I know you come from the component
Mhm.
industry with a lot of experience. Do you have any experience to share a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, one of the well, funny, not funny. You can laugh about it now, but maybe not at the time. Story that I had when I was working for one of the previous EMSs is that we ordered components and we really never ordered anything from kind of illegal sources or stuff like that. We ordered from a legitimate distributor in Poland, but that distributor bought from someone else and that someone else bought from someone else and the component was counterfeit, and the problem was we just tracked it till like the third person in a row, and then it was like poof, faded. So it was a big issue. But the funny thing about it was one delivery came in a big box, and the components were really just a very small part of that. And then normally, use the fillers like the plastic, the little bags or something with ESD, and that was a female shoe, a high heel. So I was
Oh
like,
no.
this I have they really called me to the warehouse and was like, "Man, what are you buying? This is crazy." So, yeah, counterfeit is a big problem and Europeans are really looking into this very seriously. We have some associations and looking into that matter. So, yeah. But I would say in general, I know we're going to talk about it further, but I would say it is getting much better than it did in the past.
Wow. I was working with a client, and the component we sourced from a legitimate source,
Mhm.
and but we still debating at this point whether it's actually of counterfeit nature or not. And it's sometimes very tough to figure out exactly what a component's origin is or isn't. And so I was doing my research. I thought, let's ask AI how to actually identify counterfeit components, and how would we put processes in place to prevent this. So can I share a video and we'll maybe just listen to it?
Yeah, please. Let's
All
do it.
right. So here's a video that I got Google Notebook LM to generate, and I thought it was actually pretty good. So here we go.
Tens of billions of dollars are lost across the global electronics industry every year to counterfeit components. When these unverified parts enter the supply chain, the downstream consequences are product failures, massive warranty costs, and safety incidents that can create existential reputational damage for a manufacturer. The 2020 chip shortage supercharged this infiltration. When lead times on basic microcontrollers stretched to 52 weeks, procurement teams under enormous pressure turn to unregulated gray market brokers to find inventory.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? It's that was definitely a big issue in my experience in 2020, 2021 when we had the post pandemic and the world kind of partially shut down. That had a huge impact on a lot of parts. What was your experience with that?
Unfortunately, a true story. There was a lot of counterfeit. I mean, at that time, I was working for a distributor from this, a high service distributor. We actually were franchised for everything, and our inventory was pretty big. But there was shortage of the components, as in the video says, and people were buying from not legitimate brokers, the ones that were not able really to give them the testing at Whitehorse, for example, or some place else that would do the testing, and people just had to buy. And then it was like, oops, this is the wrong component or damaged component. So yeah, it was a big issue. I agree with that.
Yeah. Like I know a lot of brokers, especially those in maybe not so legitimate locations, but not to really blame them. I've worked with a lot of Chinese brokers, some
Mm.
from parts of Europe where you're from. I think in most cases, the brokers themselves are not really in the business of distributing counterfeit components. I mean, they're just there to be part of the supply chain that isn't available at times when you have
Hmm.
these extreme
Hmm.
conditions in the market and some of these components that's gone end of life and you just can't find the parts. Where would you go besides your normal distribution channels? You have to sort of think outside that. And I think this video and talk about a little bit about some of the strategies. So let's just continue watching this video and see, okay?
Okay.
Counterfeiters adapt to these surges in demand. They have evolved far beyond the clumsy fakes of the past, now deploying professional laser remarking equipment and microscopic dye cloning to mimic authentic hardware. Relying on human sight to catch these is a trap known as the visual inspection fallacy. Looking at a tray in pristine packaging, a recycled integrated circuit looks identical to a fresh one straight from the factory tape.
Yeah. So it's really hard to identify these counterfeit components on the surface, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And in the past, it was not only fake, but they were empty. I think the story of empty packages, they are already gone because people are really scanning everything, but it's still, you can still have the wrong materials in there. So I would say testing, testing, testing. That's what we have to do. And this is how you really can verify if your broker is a legitimate source.
Yeah, I think the one of the things the AI told me was the waiting market, and the video here covered a little bit of that because the counterfeiters are getting more sophisticated where they actually have laser marking equipment. I remember in the old days, it used to be you get a fake part and you can use just a little bit of solvent and just rub the marking and it rubs off, right?
And
So
yeah.
it is one of the ways that I guess the legitimate component manufacturers are really investing into ways that, they authenticate their own real parts by, putting proper identification. I've
Mhm.
seen some components where they actually put these little hologram stickers, kind of like the ones that you'll find on the front of your credit card sometimes to
Mhm.
identify the real thing versus a fake one. I think a lot of the supply chain, every step along the way is really kind of trying to make this work for all of us, which is good. I think we need to do that. But what are the motivations behind the counterfeit companies in making these things? Obviously, they're trying to make something fake for a lot lower cost so that they can pass the part off as a real part, and some fool, hopefully not us, will pay, top dollars for these, very expensive parts. So, let's continue to watch this video and watch this next part.
Basic electrical testing offers a similarly false sense of security. Modern clones and recycled components are specifically engineered to pass standard go no go functional benchmarks on the test bench. Exposing these anomalies requires a parametric stress test. This forces the component to operate at the extreme edges of its specified thermal and voltage ranges, where inferior builds exhibit out of spec behavior or fail entirely. Because these parts sail through standard visual and electrical checks, keeping them out of a final product requires abandoning visual reliance entirely.
Yeah, so electrical testing, which you mentioned, is the only way to know whether the part is or isn't real. I had a fun, interesting situation that with my client was in their testing, they were finding about 20% of the boards that were assembled had a problem, had functional issue. So thought about it and thought, well, why would anyone even go to the extent of making a counterfeit component if only 20% of it was substandard? Or could this be the case that their test isn't quite as comprehensive as it should be? We debated this a little bit. We even had an open discussion with our client, really thinking, if someone's going to go to the extent of making a fake component, first of all, they probably wouldn't pick a very inexpensive component. They would likely pick a more expensive component, like a processor or a memory
Mhm.
part or
Mhm.
something that's of significant value. This one, pretty component that was in question, I think it was like a $2 part, $2 US. Why would anyone go to the extent of making a fake $2 part? More so, even making a fake $2 part that actually works 80% of the time. So it brought the question, was that part really a counterfeit, or could it be an actual design problem that we've revealed on this board? So it's very tough as a contract manufacturer to debate those situations because we're not in control of the design. We're not in control of the tests or the test
Mhm.
suite. We're there to carry out the the instructions provided to us by our client. And for us at the time, even though we did not purchase the part from the official distribution source, we did purchase it from, what we think of as a tier 2 or tier 3 distributor. This distributor has actually been in business for more than 30 years. So the chance of counterfeit was, in our opinion, quite low, but that wasn't our customer's perspective. In your experience, Arek, like in working with in distribution, what are some of the methodologies or processes that those companies would go to ensure that the counterfeit components don't get into the supply chain?
Well, when you're looking at a franchise distributor, the answer is really clear that you are just buying directly from the manufacturers. There's no buying back from the market. There is no buying on open packages and very simple stuff like this. And of course, you do your quality check whenever something is coming in. But then when you are a broker, and I am working with one at the moment in Poland, then we just have to do a little bit more due diligence. So whenever the parts are a little bit more critical inside the whole process, then we of course send it to the external lab, something like Whitehorse, for example, to test the component and give us the whole result. You can meet all the criterias that it was not opened, or MSL is still there and everything, but it's always better for you to just double check it before you send it to the customer. And this is the number one priority that is on the brokers that are currently supplying the components to the market.
Yeah, sending out to the independent test lab is definitely a very good strategy. I think the video actually covers part of it. So let's continue here.
Organizations must build a strict zero trust architecture across the entire manufacturing lifecycle. The first line of defense is purely administrative, the approved vendor list, or AVL. This policy firewall dictates that every supplier must be a franchise distributor tied directly to the original component manufacturer, or OCM. It actively blocks unverified third-party sources from entering the procurement system. But a decentralized organization constantly battles a localized threat known as maverick buying. If a site engineer needs 20 resistors to finish a work order, they might bypass procurement delays by using a corporate card online. That single purchase introduces completely unvetted inventory directly onto the production floor.
Maverick buying. This is a new term I've never heard of until I asked AI, and this is actually a thing. Have you experienced this?
Maverick only for me is, with one movie and one person, but I like how dramatic AI is here. This is one purchase that is deleting everything. So yeah, very cool.
I didn't know about the term, but I do know about the practice. This is a situation where, and typically it's the engineering team, but sometimes it's also a supply chain team when the management is putting a lot of pressure to finish a project and they just need to find that one golden screw. We heard about that term a lot. The golden screw problem. This is the one last part that's holding everything up. And you can't find it anywhere. Nobody seems to have it in stock. What do you do next? And for good or bad, I use Octopart a lot. Fine Chips, these kind of websites, trusted parts. But, Octoparts and Fine Chips will often reveal, well, this part's not available anywhere. But hey, there's this other company which you never heard of, some XYZ name or whatever. They actually happen to have 1,500 pieces sitting on their shelf. What do you do next? As the person holding up the entire project because of the golden screw problem, you eventually, I guess, find yourself like Tom Cruise and turn into a maverick.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and for good or bad, sometimes that one person with all good intentions ends up being the maverick who brings in a potentially problematic part into the whole mix. That part finds itself onto the assembly line, gets put on the board, and next thing you know, the product isn't working because the part wasn't completely properly vetted, as you mentioned, properly tested, checked, and that happens. But I don't think anyone intentionally wants to put in a part there, but because of some of these situations, people just are, drop their guards and don't stay vigilant, and they get the wrong part.
So it's kind of like they're actually doing the other Maverick with Mel Gibson and putting everything all in and trying to bet on the right component. But you know what? The counterfeit is one thing in this case, but the other issue is it's not necessarily a counterfeit part. It is exactly as you said. It might be sitting in another EMS that actually bought a little bit more. Maybe the customer project faded out and they're still sitting on the inventory. So we are not talking about any kind of counterfeit. We just probably need to do still the right testing, because maybe the component has been sitting there a little bit too long and it's already completely outdated. But yeah, I would say these are several issues that can just occur, and you need to use either Tom Cruise or Mel Gibson, depending on what kind of strategy you want to do.
Okay, well, let's see what AI picks.
A more systemic risk occurs when a severe shortage empties the authorized distributors entirely, forcing supply chain managers to turn to independent brokers to prevent a halted production line. If an organization absolutely must go off list, those independent brokers need to be vetted against strict AS608 and IDEA STD 1010 inspection standards well before a crisis hits. Physical counterfeits are almost always accompanied by a parallel administrative threat: fraud. Fabricated traceability records, fake distributor invoices, and perfectly forged certificates of conformance allow fraudulent parts to sail straight through standard receiving inspections unchallenged. Defeating this requires strict verification protocols. Teams must cross-reference the distributor's name against the manufacturer's official locator and verify the documents by contacting the OCM directly, rather than trusting a forwarded PDF. If an organization fails to centralize its purchasing governance and independently verify the paper trail, even the most rigorous physical inspection becomes a highly porous defense. When manufacturing is outsourced to a contract manufacturer, the risk profile shifts.
Hey, Kin, a crazy idea here. Actually, we're getting to a long of our normal recording, so why don't we put a break here and we'll split this into kind of 2 videos so that we don't really put our audience to sleep and that they can follow with us in the next episode. Would that be okay?
That's a great idea. My coffee is actually running low, so this is a good time to refill. But yeah, let's catch you guys in the next part 2 of this video. Thank you.
See you later, guys.